ADOS and Diaspora wars, let's start with a video I helped contribute to, which is this video from Cam James on Tariq Nasheed and the FBA. But let me first be clear and fair. Today is the most gracious you'll probably ever see me with ADOS, because I find ADOS and its proponents to be not worthy of grace most of the times I encounter them. I just don't agree. I had a somewhat cordial, I'll say a wholly cordial encounter with an ADOS representative some months back before I decided I was gonna do this video, who I've tried to reach out to talk. That's about it. Every other time I've encountered people that are into ADOS, it hasn't been all that discernible from FBA nonsense. So I guess let me explain this for those in the chat. ADOS stands for American Descendants of Slavery. So here's a website that I was introduced to. So this is the ADOS Research Institute. This is what the dude sent me. I don't know who's over this or what this is about, but they have a total of 2 reports. We'll leave the Research Institute part to the side for a second, because I'm no major scholar. I don't use ADOS or FBA. I am a Black American. I am an African American. I roll with those two. I don't do ADOS or FBA because both of those terms connote an ideology and a disposition I just generally don't agree with. So I don't call myself a Democrat. You know what I'm saying? It's certain things I'm not gonna call myself, and I'm not gonna call myself ADOS or FBA. Now, if you're asking if my lineage is here in America, the answer is yes. I do not have any, as far as I know, direct lineage from outside of the United States. My mother and father are both from Chicago, born and raised. My grandparents, both born and raised in America. My grandmother's from Mississippi, like most Black people's grandmothers is from Chicago. My grandfather is from Chicago. I'm not fully sure of my grandfather's story. He was a bit of a hoodlum and he had a sketchy past. He is not foreign in any form or fashion. But when they pop up, their first thing to say is this person's Jamaican. He's clearly Nigerian. Oh yeah, my granddad was one of the original YNs, low key. But that's a whole other conversation. But no, I don't have any Jamaican, Nigerian, Caribbean, or African direct descent.
Said earlier, here's the official FBA website. I told y'all he built this, and at the bottom it says Foundational Black Americans. Let's throw that joint in the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office site, and boom. That's your boy, right? Just in case you needed more proof, the earliest recorded mention of the site's URL happened on October 7th of 2020, when he was trying to sell y'all FBA mini flags. The earliest mention of the term is hard to pinpoint, but he was using it on another one of his sites in 2019. Here's proof of him creating the term in the first place, claiming he adapted it from Dr. Claude Anderson's Native Black Americans term. The FBA movement started as Tangibles 2020 in the lead up to the 2020 election.
Man, we don't need to be on no AD.
So that's the first thing, because people be like, FBA is a lineage. And it's like, if you're telling me y'all made up a new term, I get you, but it was made by King Grifter. Let's start that out first. This video is now top 10 reasons I don't fuck with FBA ADOS in no particular order. Number 1 is everything FBA is as a record label, a crew, a clique, and a motherfucking crew. Everything that's ever been done by Tariq Nasheed is awful, just because he's involved with it. I don't care if Tariq Nasheed saved 2 babies from a burning building. I'm happy those babies are alive, but it would have been better if he sacrificed himself in the process. Okay, Tariq Nasheed is King Grifter. I've talked about him a long time ago. I'm gonna have to come back to it now, but he's just been an awful dude for years at this point. And he was connected to another group, ADOS, which started out as something that a lot of people seemed cool with, but over time eventually showed his ass. And we'll talk about that later. So he created this FBA concept. And FBA is basically a group of online weirdos. You can call it a lineage if you want. That's fine. Understand, other people that are connected to your lineage are a group of online weirdos. They're like black 4chaners, black Reddit energy, a bunch of white nationalists and blackface. You say they ain't just online? I'll take your word for it. I've never encountered these niggas in the wild. Now, they may flow into different versions of hotepery, which has always been here, but the people that brand themselves with ADOS are just a lot of online weirdos. So,
ADOS, man, we need to be banned.
2020.
Let's listen to that one more time.
2020 election.
Man, we don't need to be on no ADOS, man. We need to be Pan-African. That's what Pan-Africanism is. Us fight for everybody else to come over here and get some of the resources that we've helped accumulate for them, and then they turn around and say, okay, thank you, Akata, and I'm about to go work with these white people.
Back then, Tariq was in
There's so much to unpack there. Fucking tragedy. Let's first stillman where some of this comes from and talk about that term Akata. A term I literally, my entire life, I just told y'all I grew up around Nigerians. I have never heard that term my entire life in real life. I've never heard that term my entire life. I am 43 years old. I grew up around Nigerians. I hung with Africans, dated the baddest Sierra Leonean chick at my school, at Clark. Never got hate from Africans in any form or fashion. I'm not saying it don't exist. What I'm saying is FBA people will make you think that Akata is some type of like deeply rooted anti-black slur that they grew up singing Negro spirituals about. ADOS and FBA people think Nigerians are the black Targaryens. Or what were the actual black Targaryens? They were the Valerians? That's who ADOS actually think Nigerians are. Real talk, they talk about Nigerians like they're supervillains. This shit is hilarious. They talk about being called Akata as if African booty scratch wasn't a comeback. So Juicy made a very good video about this now 4 years ago. Right? And Juicy's I love Juicy's analysis. Juicy's very balanced, but very principled. I'm going to just put this in the description or whatever. If you want to talk about that there is reason to critique some black immigrants, especially in the media space, on their anti-blackness, you can do that. That is a real thing. There is a propensity for behavior to come from black immigrant populations. Like Juicy so perfectly looks the part of like the 92% and talks that game that the black liberals be getting so close to her, and as soon as Juicy lets that little communist flag fly just a little, but they be pearl clutching when Juicy gives them some materialist analysis and calls out the bullshit. Oh, I love Juicy for that. Oh, there's critiques to make about black immigrant populations and specifically their relationship with the media and how they're amplified in media. There's definitely a conversation about that. There's a conversation to have about anti-blackness from those populations because there is a propensity for anti-blackness. Because first off, anti-blackness, as I said in another video, everybody's got anti-blackness in them. Every single last one of us. Now you're either actively negotiating and fighting against it internally, you're actively resisting anti-black tendencies, or you just actively are in the shit, or you act like you don't, but you do. That's just the reality of the situation. Nobody is immune to conditioning of the media and how we're meant to look and think of blackness, regardless if that blackness is American born or internationally born. And so what happens, I talked about this with Foreign Man years ago as well, is that when you are a black, but you're not from America, it's easy to just assume that black Americans are just out our fucking minds. My parents are Jamaican. They grew me and my siblings up with the whole black Americans are ghetto. They don't have a culture like us. Thankfully, me and most Americanized siblings have been able to change their mind. Yeah, because that's what's taught outside of America. America exports an image of black Americans to be this deranged, uncivilized, barbaric thing to incentivize the idea that we are deserving of our treatment and condition here. They have to present us like this to the world. The world will be looking at what they're doing to us like, how is this something y'all are doing? Why is this supposed to be cool? People fall in line with that. And it takes a generation to be here to realize, oh, wait, no. Foreign Man's talked about this before. He was like, yo, when I came from the Bahamas to Iowa of all places, I had a particular belief and disposition toward black Americans that something was wrong with y'all. And after spending a little bit of time in this space and how I was regarded, it started to make sense. But not everybody has that. The crux of how this Diaspora Wars, ADOS shit started is a response to what is ultimately a white supremacist tactic to pit foreign-born black people against domestically born black Americans. That's where ADOS comes from. And they use internet troll tendencies to kind of drive that up. ADOS is very manosphere adjacent. What do the groupers call themselves? Operators? They have like people, their whole job is to just constantly churn memes and content. All black people will be as black as they possibly can when it's beneficial to them. And then as soon as they have an opportunity to distance themselves from that shit, they do. It's just easier for foreign-born black people. That is something that happens with some black immigrants. But here's the key thing I want you to think about, and I'm about to play this to get to it. How is that even possible? And that's the thing that will always frustrate me about even the most good-natured, civilized, sensible ADOS figures, is that the question around their entire ethos never gets back to why is our condition in this country the way it is for there to be an incentive to side against us with our oppressors? And why is that never a part of the praxis and conversation with these types of individuals? Let's listen to what Nasheed says here one more time.
Lockstep with the ADOS movement, led by Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore.
Go work with these white people.
Back then, Tangibles 2020 in the lead up to the 2020 election.
Man, we don't need to be on no ADOS, man. We need to be Pan-African. That's what Pan-Africanism is. Us fight for everybody else to come over here and get some of the resources that we've helped accumulate for them.
Us fighting for everyone else to get some of the resources we've helped accumulate for them. What does that mean? The resources we've helped accumulate. My nigga, do you mean slavery? Do you mean the prison industrial complex? You mean the civil rights movement? What are we talking about right now? It's America first, but black people. That's what it is. And I'll come back to that in a second. Like, he didn't blink in saying that, and most ADOS will not blink in that framing of the situation where black people have worked and accumulated resources and done all these things in America, and we don't want to share our piece of the pie with immigrants. And there's never a conversation about how our piece of the pie is a slither of what we're actually fucking owed. The white supremacist institutions that have run this country from its beginning are not interested in giving us any more. So we're getting scraps, and we're literally fighting over scraps. And we're not fighting the people dishing out scraps to us. We're telling these other groups that 9 times out of 10 are aligned with our struggle, let alone the fact that their struggle in their country is innately wed to the same core issues, that they can't have none of our scraps.
And then they turn around and say, okay, thank you, Akata, and I'm about to go work with these white people.
Remember that line, I'm about to go work with these white people.
Back then, Tariq was in lockstep with the ADOS movement, led by Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore. ADOS has their own problems. Rapper Talib Kweli penned a Medium article in 2019 called Why ADOS is Trash that included 2 segments that help prove this point. The first is from when ADOS followers misidentified his heritage after he criticized their co-founder Yvette Carnell, saying he's Haitian and telling him to go back. Talib Kweli is from Brooklyn, and his parents aren't immigrants. Stay tuned for them doing that to me 2 weeks ago. The second is about how ADOS, and now FBA,
again, that's what they do. But
love targeting liberals and progressives like Ta-Nehisi Coates, Kamala, Cory Booker, Bernie Sanders, and every other critic of Trump, because Dems have taken the black vote for granted. That's absolutely true. But Kweli says that when you target Dems like that, you're letting the GOP slide. I agree 100%. Yvette got this rolling when she attacked Talib out of nowhere in 2019. His tweet was pro-reparations and anti-Trump, saying he prefers a plan for reparations over withholding our votes and letting Trump win again. She slammed him for being a loud and wrong celebrity. How? He agrees with you. Oh, wait.
Right. Now, you know that video was deleted.
Yvette, I think, is even more beloved than Tariq Nasheed. I remember people actually being more mad at me that I had Yvette or something than Tariq Nasheed.
I'll just say this. Remember when I said that there's 4 types of MAGA, and that then there's the true believers and the grifters? Yvette is somewhere between there. Yvette Carnell is true black excellence brush personified. She don't like ghetto niggas. She don't like hood niggas. She don't like dirty Africans, sneaky Caribbeans. She don't like none of that shit. Yvette Carnell is like, at best, she's like old W.E.B. Du Bois. Why y'all sneaky? I don't know. I was trying to think of a slur. I was like, what slur we do for Caribbeans? When I think about Caribbeans, I think about hardworking niggas that can dance well and got good food. What makes Yvette so unique is that black excellence ethos is so seductive, often impenetrable to aspirational young black people and older black people. Again, at the core of this belief system is very much a bootstraps politic that says if we just got rid of the ghetto niggas and the hood niggas and the cheating, sneaky immigrants, then white people would give us our fair share. He said no different than your average HBCU World Court. I'll give you that. We'll meet their CB practices. The Royal Courts they be a specific type. And the proof of this is the fact that, as I'm sure they're going to say here,
if you do like the research and you follow the money, Nazi-backed MAGA sapien type branding. So like Yvette and Tariq and them was specifically trying to align themselves with the MAGA sect brand. And a lot of it also, if you do like the research and you follow the money, Nazi-backed MAGA sapien type branding. So like, who is this in service of?
Very serious accusation, Potter.
No evidence.
I appreciate that, Foreign. I was going to talk about this anyway. So Yvette served on the board for a group called Progressives for Immigration Reform, which was a fake progressive front organization linked to essentially a Nazi, a white nativist, white supremacist, and eugenics supporter named John Tanton. His goal was to limit black and brown immigration. This organization he served on built websites that accused immigrants of being responsible for things like traffic, overconsumption, and other environmental problems. They've also increased friction between ADOS/FBA and black immigrants, as we're going to show a lot more of in the video. The ultimate goal here is to delay a black or brown majority population in the country for more years. Also, big shout out to Ole for throwing me the alley-oop with this research. We all love you. Thank you so much. Suffice to
yeah, so again, I can end the video here. The ADOS and FBA movement cannot be inextricated from the fact that its key figures have historically aligned themselves with literal neo-Nazis, literal eugenicists. And we're not talking about, I mentioned Du Bois earlier. We're not talking about Du Bois in the 1930s with Margaret Sanger when he didn't know any, well, he probably knew better, but he couldn't, we're not talking about back then when that seemed like as a horrible idea. We're not talking about Garvey and Malcolm X meeting with the KKK in the 60s with Malcolm and in the 20s or whenever with Garvey, which is still L's. We're not talking about that though. We're talking about in the late 2010s, serving on the board with right-wing neo-Nazi-backed organizations because they connected on their hatred of immigrants. This is a loud minority. They have started to get a little bit of motion. We can no longer disconnect from ADOS and ignore them. The black excellence ties of ADOS and FBA and all that stuff is starting to intertwine with the black liberal in general. They're starting to connect the dots on that because they're already aligned enough. It's not that a lot of black people are anti-immigrant, although there's more than you think. It's that this particular group is very loud online. And black people are just as susceptible to the propaganda against immigration as everyone else in this country. And a lot of it goes back to Barack Obama. Is that going to be the name of the video? This is all Obama's fault. What they're about, to me, is fundamentally anti-black because it's very pro-American. And America is not a pro-black nation with a pro-black history or a pro-black ethos or a pro-black future plan. The irony of this whole movement is this idea about reparations. Reparations, the way they have in mind, would be the biggest black capitalist boondoggle in the history of man. It would be dinner with Jay-Z. It would be a transfer of wealth from the white supremacist forces into the black misleadership class. It would be a permanent deal with them to say, we're giving you this money so you can use it to manage these niggas better than we can right now. When you go back and you hear Tariq Nasheed and all these other folks talk about their engagement with America, the fact that they never critique the nature of what our government is, this very America first ethos behind them, that's what it comes down to. Years Like Fever says the Rock Nation Infrastructure and Highways Voucher Program. Boy, that's exactly what it would be. It would be mad financial literacy classes in the hood. Not better education and actual education, but financial literacy. You need an LLC. From here on out, chat, whenever anybody FBA or ADOS says that I'm a tether or anything of the sort, I want y'all to tell them I'm from Abyssonia. That is now a part of my official lore.